All right, we'd like to warmly welcome everyone to this Microsoft 365 Development Bi-Weekly Community Call. My name is David Warner, PnP team member from Catapult Systems. We are having an epic collection of presenters today. We're going to begin with an overview of the latest on the PnP initiatives, PnP Framework and Core SDK, PowerShell, Yo Teams, Microsoft Graph, Microsoft Teams samples, and Power Platform samples, and then the ever-popular Together Mode picture time for the entire community. Then the rock stars of the day, Bert Jensen and Paolo PLRC, introduction to the new PnP Transformation Framework. Then we're going to move with Marcus Muller on Teams meeting apps on how you can record and playback attendee names to ensure that everything is accurate. And then Ravio Williams is going to cover a feedback bot using the new adaptive card capabilities. So let's begin with a review of how you can get involved and start beginning to participate in the community. If you would like to demo a technical or solution pattern, that is an opportunity for you. This is a community initiative, and so you have that opportunity. You can request a demo spot at the URL aka.ms/m365pnp/request/demo. Or you can contribute on GitHub. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a moment. That's an opportunity. We are an open source community, and you can provide feedback, both good and constructive. We would like to hear it all. Looking at an overview of the resources available to you, this may feel like an overwhelming slide, but it can all be accessed at the primary URL of aka.ms/m365pnp. That is going to provide you opportunity to look at these videos, developer and community. You're going to be able to see all of the open source repositories available to you, all of the sample galleries that cover team samples, web parts, Power Platform, SPFX list formatting, and the new ACEs, as well as the opportunity to utilize and contribute back. So again, aka.ms/m365pnp is your #1 landing spot. Take a look and get involved. Let's begin by looking at the script samples, and for that, we'll hand it over to Paul Bullock.
Hey there, everybody. So the script samples is a site for sharing scripts with everybody in the community for automating tasks in 365. So this is examples of the Microsoft Graph scripts, CLI for 365, PnP PowerShell, SPA management shell, and etc. I'd like to thank everybody who's contributed so far. It's been great, but we've had a bumper pack of new contributions in the last couple of weeks. So I'd like to thank all the contributors for that. So we've had over 11 new samples and 6 updates to existing samples. So it's been a massive effort from the, sorry, I can't see the slide actually. So from the presenters, so from the contributors on the slide deck showed there. And I'd like to thank you personally. That's been amazing that you've produced so much in such a short amount of time. So I'm really happy. But if you want to go and check out the samples, go to aka.ms/script-samples. And then you can see the site, and then you can have a look around and grab the scripts that you want to see. So back over to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Now, we are in the middle of October, about halfway there. Remember, we have the Hacktoberfest opportunity. This is an industry-wide initiative to get more involved. Look for any PnP repo tagged with Hacktoberfest, and your pull request will count towards getting you some swag there from DigitalOcean, t-shirts, and look for those good first issues and help wanted within the PnP repos, things like community docs and CLI, and we invite you to take advantage of that. Now, if you're just getting started in the community and want to learn how to take advantage of the resources or potentially provide back to the community by updating those resources, Sharing is Caring is a hands-on opportunity in a safe space, inclusive environment that's going to give you walkthroughs together with other members of the community and PnP on how to take advantage of contributing back or using those resources. We've got our upcoming first-time contributor for Power Platform samples, the first time ever at the end of this month, and the ever-popular Ask Me Anything sessions coming up, PnP PowerShell and CLI with PnP scheduled soon. Again, safe space opportunities. Join. We will collaborate together and walk you through hands-on. aka.ms/sharing is caring. Of course, within all of our initiatives, we want to recognize and celebrate you. The PnP Recognition Program is here powered by Credly, the same Credly that powers the badges for certification exams. Your contributions to the community are going to be officially recognized by us with more badges coming up. We do need you to opt in. It is a very cool program, and we cannot wait. It is no cost to you, by the way, and we are going to continue to crank out new campaigns and new initiatives to recognize you for all the work you're doing, working with a number of the PnP maintainers, things like CLI, and the independent publisher connectors, all kinds of stuff coming out soon. So please opt in aka.ms/M365PnP-recognition. We also have the Tuesday platform call coming up on the 19th of October at 8 a.m. These are very exciting because they are the latest news from Microsoft engineering. So you're going to get it directly from the mothership. These sessions are going to always be covering latest from the Microsoft engineering and presented by Microsoft employees. So we have coming up on next Tuesday, Introduction to Universal Print, and the latest on the Microsoft Graph Data Connect. You can get that recurrent invite from aka.ms/M365-dev-call. Now, let's begin with the latest on the PnP.NET libraries.
Yes, thank you, David. For PnP.NET, we have a new release. So we have PnP Core SDK version 1.4. Really excited about this new release because it brings two main new components. There is a transformation framework, which will be a topic of the first demo in today's call. So I'm not going to talk too much about that. And there's also an admin library. So bringing admin features, site collection creation, enumeration, all these things will be part of PnP Core SDK. Furthermore, there is additional things like support for collapsible page sections and a ton of performance improvements. So all check out 1.4, I would say. All right, so what else happened? PnP Framework, the usual kind of flow of updates and small improvements that we keep getting from community, and we keep processing. So I think we're on track there. Still some work planned for the new schema though. And on the Core SDK side, as already mentioned, we shipped those new components, and our main focus going forward is now to finalize those components, to finalize PnP transformation and to finalize the admin library. And overall usage is again growing. We had a little dip, but now we're kind of growing again, and PnP Core SDK usage is growing as well. So I think all good there. I think that sums it up. Let's move to PowerShell.
Awesome. Thank you, Bert. As we move into PowerShell and we see Todd Clint celebrating, let's hand it over to Erwin.
Yep. So we released 1.8 finally. Took a while, but it's finally out. A lot of changes in there. It actually goes beyond the size of this slide actually to put them in there. So if you want to check out what has changed, please refer to the GitHub repo. You will find a change log there, and you will find tons of changes in 1.8. Really happy that this one is out finally. So what's happening there? We're still working on the V2 proof of concept. This is a proof of concept because we want to share it first with the community before we start to actually continuing to implement this. We're just doing a few commandlets just for the sake of discussion. A bit of our goals is that we want to simplify things. We want to, instead of having these Swiss pocket knife commandlets with 5,000 switches and options and properties and everything you can set, we want to have a single focus commandlet, a commandlet that does a thing, and that is it. And we want to get rid of the CSOM thinking. You'll know that, most of you know that, realize that PowerShell, PnP PowerShell is effectively a layer around the CSOM library from Microsoft, and that still exposes itself quite heavily in the objects that we return from the commandlets, and we're changing that. We're getting rid, still using CSOM behind the scenes where needed, but what we'll expose to you will be PowerShell objects owned by PowerShell, PnP PowerShell, and created by PnP PowerShell. So if in the future we change to some other API behind the scenes, we don't want to bug you with new type of objects. We can still return the same type of objects to you, so your scripts will continue to work. So that's what we're working on.
Awesome, exciting stuff. Thank you, Erwin. As we move into Yo Teams, let's take a look at the latest there. We have released 3.3.1, which has support for Teams.js SDK 1.11. A number of items in the roadmap. The team is building and growing, and so there's a lot of opportunity. As noticed here at the top of the slide, it is Hacktoberfest, so there are good first issues and help-wanted opportunities for you to get involved too. Definitely take advantage of that and reach out if you have any questions to the Yo Teams team, aka.ms/Yo Teams. Let's move into the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. All right, Microsoft Graph Toolkit, and we'll invite Beth to give us the latest.
Thank you. For those of you who doesn't know what Microsoft Graph Toolkit is, it's an authentication providers library and web components library for helping you to connect and work with Microsoft Graph. You can use any of the web framework, work in all the browsers, and we have a wide range of authentication providers to help you work with projects such as SharePoint, Teams, Electron, and more. Our team currently is working very closely with the Fluent UI Web Components team to prepare for V3. I know there hasn't been a lot of detailed updates on this page, but you can definitely go check out our projects board because the Graph Toolkit is open source to see our roadmap. And we update the project board every month to show like the work that we need to do there. We're also part of the Hacktoberfest tagging system, so you can go check out our help wanted issues and first good issues in order to help us. We've only been managing to fix small bugs because we're a small team, so we are really relying on our community to help us at this time to improve our features and fix our bugs. So if you have feedbacks, let us know and come to our repo to check out our new component specs and be participating as part of the discussion. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Beth. Fantastic stuff. MGT rocks, aka.ms/MGT. Let's move into team samples with Bob German.
Hello. Yes. Well, I'm excited to announce 2 new team samples this week. The first is from Marcus Moeller, who will be presenting last time's sample this time, and maybe this time's sample next time. I don't know. Anyway, it makes it easy because I don't have to completely redo the slide because he always seems to have a sample, which is just great. Thank you so much, Marcus. This one is an elaboration on the meeting lifecycle bot that he brought us last time. And now he's actually taking feedback at the end of a meeting and showing universal actions with smiling and frowning faces. And we also have a new sample. It's our very first Blazor sample. So big heartfelt thanks go out to Tomi Golis. This looks like really great. It actually goes and monitors the top participants in your team so that you can kind of see who the collaboration champions are. If you're not familiar with Blazor, as I understand it, it is a technology that allows you to write in C# and compile down to run in a browser. So if you wish you were writing in C# and not JavaScript or TypeScript, it's something that has been on my list to check out for some time, and I just never seem to find the time. So here's a great opportunity to actually try it out in Teams. So back to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob. Tommy is rocking it. You could say he's blazing trails. All right, let's move on to Power Platform with April Dunham.
Thanks, David. Yeah, so super happy this month we actually have, or this week, whatever. We have 3 new Power Platform samples, specifically Power Automate samples. Lindsay Shelton has a full sample on how to do a request and review approval process with SharePoint libraries. We have a great sample by Mikhail Mendez about hiding the SharePoint page title. This actually uses the SharePoint REST API inside of Power Automate to dynamically switch with SharePoint list formatting the page template that you're using in your modern SharePoint site. And then I have my name's on there. I just I'm recreated the collect feedback workflow that we had in classic SharePoint there with Power Automate. So those are the 3 new samples we have. We welcome all of your additional samples. We're also participating in Hacktoberfest. So if you have any Power Platform, Power Automate, Power Apps, BI, we take it all type samples. Please be sure to get those submitted. And thanks to everyone that's contributed this month. Back to you, David.
Thanks, April. Again, awesome contributions from everyone. Let's move into our optional picture time with Vesa.
And let me unmute myself and let me share the screen. Let's do this in a way how we do it always. If you put the video on, we have 50 seats on the screen. Ralph had a good note actually there. Sooner or later, we will have more spots in the screen. I'm already recording this. Let's fill up the 50 and then we'll do some hand waving. Typically, that gets filled pretty fast because we have more than 200 attendees again on the call. Oh, and a SharePoint monkey is in the house as well. Awesome. I actually found the SharePoint monkey. Well, my wife found a SharePoint monkey during last weekend, so from the closet, which is pretty weird. Anyway, I think that's filled up. So let's do some hand waving, everybody. Thanks everybody for joining. Awesome to have you as part of this community. Thank you. Thank you. Keep the feedback coming, and let's stay kind and friendly. Awesome. Excellent. Let's move into the demos. Excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Vesa, and awesome community. Let's move into our first demo with Bert and Paolo on the introduction to new PnP Transformation Framework. Gentlemen, take it away.
Yes, thank you, David. And first of all, let's start with your part of the story, Bert. I'm just sharing the screen now.
Yeah. So a bit of background. folks might be aware that we already have a page transformation technology. It has been there for like about 2 years now, which enabled people to transform classic pages into modern. We have been rewriting this and we'll kind of explain why we did that work and what will be the added value of the rewrite. But I want to kind of first set the scene about why is page transformation important? Why should you care about page transformation? One thing to remember is that SharePoint pages, I'm talking about SharePoint modern pages, are key in SharePoint, and they will be getting more and more important in SharePoint. If you use Viva Connections and you can, for example, redirect to a page, it has to be modern. Modern pages work in teams. So there is inside SharePoint and the products around SharePoint, it's really important. You can also modernize existing pages. If you look at the right side of the graphs, this year we already had more than 1 million pages modernized. And a big chunk of those pages came from on-prem. So if you have an on-premises SharePoint portal or on-premises SharePoint sites, classic migration tools don't give you a modern result when you migrate that. So with page transformation, you can, for example, read your classic publishing pages from your classic on-premises portal and build a modern portal in SharePoint Online. So there's a very cool scenario, and we've seen really large customers already doing that, and I just want to kind of make some more noise about the value that brings to your organization. And it's not just about publishing pages, it also supports blog pages, wiki pages, web pages. So any page you throw at it, it will result in a modern page. Today, it is SharePoint. It used to be SharePoint only input towards modern. Going forward, we'll open up to do other types of pages as well. And I think Paulo will kind of cover that in the next slides. And so Paulo, I think you can take it away now.
Sure. Thank you, Bert. And yes, the announcement or the idea that we want to share with you now is that recently released under preview, public preview, the new PnP Transformation Framework. What the PnP Transformation is just a new release of the modernization framework with a slightly different approach compared to the previous library. It is still an open source project hosted on GitHub, but in our mind, it is the evolution of the already existing modernization framework with the idea of being able to use it in a more broad set of scenarios, and moreover, with the capability to get content, content pages from external data sources, which can be, of course, SharePoint Classic, but can be also something else like, I don't know, WordPress or anything else that you want to use as the data source to transform content from something, I want to be generic intentionally, from something to SharePoint Online Modern. And we think that partners and customers will love this opportunity and this capability and will start creating their own data source connectors or providers to work with this new framework. So let me try to explain you the idea that we use to start thinking about the new transformation framework. We have nowadays the PnP Modernization Framework, and in this one, we can read the SharePoint Classic pages from on-premises or SharePoint Online. We modernize them and we write them in SharePoint Online Modern pages. But we do all of that in a unique engine, which is an engine just targeting SharePoint from SharePoint to SharePoint modernizations. Now, with the transformation framework, we decided to review the architecture and the solution and to introduce the idea of a data source, which can still be and still is SharePoint Classic out of the box, because that's the one we support out of the box. But as I said, could be something else. And you can simply implement your own data source by implementing a set of interfaces and base abstract classes to create your own data source provider. Then there is another module from an architectural point of view, which is the transformation engine. In the transformation engine, we do the actual processing of an object, which is an abstraction in memory of a page, which will become a modern page in SharePoint Online thanks to a generation engine. Well, inside the transformation engine, we can rely on a set of mapping providers. For example, there is a mapping provider for web parts. There is another one for page layouts. There is one for URLs. one for users, and so on and so forth. So the idea is that the transformation engine is a pluggable engine where we can plug in our mappers. And right now, again, we provide out-of-the-box mappers that target the main target of the transformation, which is SharePoint Classic to SharePoint Modern. But ideally, you can create your own mappers, or you can customize and register your own mappers if you want to simply change the default behavior of the transformation framework. How can you do that? Well, you can do that because the new solution and the new framework with the new architecture is targeting .NET Core, .NET Standard, is based on dependency injection, and as such, you can inject your own implementations of the services that we rely on so that it is fully, completely customizable. As you saw with PnP Core SDK, also in the PnP Transformation Framework, we have support for asynchronous development, we have an open architecture, and we wanted to reach the capability to have full testability of the solution, which was one of the missing features in the previous modernization framework. And it is built on top of PnP Core SDK for that reason, because we want to reuse what we learned to do while building the PnP Core SDK. And so we are using the PnP Core SDK engine and Pages API under the cover, and we have built a new framework on top of it, reusing the reading part, reading from SharePoint Classic, and still using CSOM in there. So we still rely on CSOM when we read the Classic content. But when we write, when we generate new modern pages, we just rely on modern techniques on PnP Core SDK, meaning SharePoint REST and Microsoft Graph, which is the philosophy under the cover of PnP Core SDK. Moreover,
so, Paulo, can I
sure.
add something to that? What Paulo described is really important, because we now have this intermediate model that you can populate with data, and then we use our modern SDKs and techniques to write it to a SharePoint page. But imagine the scenario where you have your company uses let's say some kind of a wiki product that maybe it's good, but maybe you want to move that to SharePoint. Well, now you can think about reading the content from your wiki product and populating the model, and then say generate page, and then you get a modern page from your classic, from your old other type of content. I think that's a really compelling use case. And if you want to work on that thing, in that case, if you have an example, we're happy to work with you to kind of build this transformation. Back to you, Paulo.
Definitely. Thank you. Definitely. And most likely we will make it available, something like a startup kit for building your own data source as well in the upcoming month. One step at a time will do everything. And again, talking about one step at a time, we also plan to have in the near future another SIG call demo where we will explain you how you can use this new framework in a architecture based, for example, on a cloud-based solution like an Azure function or stuff like that, because using dependency injection, you can easily do that. So one more slide, and then we will see a demo. The data sources right now are SharePoint, 2013, 16, 19. So we deprecated 2010, just for your information. And of course, online, SharePoint Online Classic. We support transforming pages, wiki, web part, publishing, and blogs, and images and assets related to the pages that we are transforming. We have mapping logic for all of the main content like web parts and layouts when we think about SharePoint as the data source. And just to be completely clear, we do not migrate content. So we do not take care of files, documents, list items, and stuff like that, because this is not a tool for migrating. This is a tool for transforming content pages from one data source to SharePoint Online Modern. So let's have a look to a quick demo of how you can use it in practice to transform your pages. And in order to do that, I will switch to a website. This is a classic team site built in SharePoint Online, built by Bert a while ago already, but Bert loves cycling, so it is based on cycling races and stuff like that. Indeed, this is, you wanna...
You see also that is quite old, because it was the 2018 Tour scheme, so.
Yeah, this is a classic wiki page in a classic theme site. We want to transform this page as well, eventually this one as well, which is yet another wiki page with a table and with an embedded video from YouTube and stuff like that. We want to transform those pages into modern pages in a modern theme site. And here in the site pages, we don't have any of those pages right now. So we can easily use PnP PowerShell. We simply need to connect, first of all, to the target environment. So remember that first you have to connect to the target, and then you have to connect to the source, at least right now, based on the out-of-the-box behavior nowadays of PnP PowerShell. So now that I'm connected with the target connection and with the default connection, I can simply and easily say invoke PnP transformation. I provide the page that I want to transform, and I provide the target connection. And as you will see, in few seconds, we will see the new page transformed and available in the target site with modern UI and modern functionalities. And here we are. So if I go back to my browser, we can refresh this page to speed up the demo, and we can see that I have my page. I preserve the information about who created the page, for example. And if I click on this page, I can see the new transformed page with the modern UI in SharePoint Online Modern. The same can be done with any other page that you have. And you can also define, for example, using parameters plotting in PowerShell, you can reuse parameters. So you can do, for example, the transformation of multiple pages at once, still in PowerShell, sharing the same set of options. And as you can see, we have plenty of options available when we want to transform a page. And once all of the pages will be correctly transformed into modern pages, we can go back one more time and see that in our, this is the modern site, we have the migrated pages. And for example, we have the 2018 Giro d'Italia, and we can see the embedded YouTube video and the table and all the stuff. The same can be done for publishing pages. So we can connect to a publishing site, like, for example, this one, in which I have an article page with the page layout of type left article left with the left image. And we want to convert it into a publishing page here in a communication site. So again, we can connect to the target and to the source site. And once we've done that, we can invoke PnP transformation. This time it will be a publishing page. So I can run it one more time, and I will see my sample article transformed into a modern page in a communication site. And again, let me refresh, and we can see the transformed page with the picture with the image on the left. If you want to do that, and I'm going to close, if you want to do that in code, you can use dependency injection. So if you're already used to use the PnP Core SDK, you add the PnP Core SDK. You can add the PnP SharePoint transformation, which means under the cover, it will add and register all of the services for PnP transformation and for SharePoint as the data source. You can provide plenty of options. This is just for the sake of giving you an idea, but you can provide plenty of options to customize the behavior of the transformation. And then you will need an old school client context for the data source and a new PnP context for the target. And you can simply say transform SharePoint async using a page transformator service to execute the transformation. So quickly back to the slides, roadmap. Now we are in public preview. We plan to release a release candidate in November, and we plan to have the general availability of this framework by the end of 2021. That's the idea. Few links if you want to dig into this topic. And that's all from our side.
Awesome. Thank you, Bert and Paolo. This is exciting stuff. You could have called it the transformation easy button. That's how incredible this is. Really, really cool stuff. Thank you so much. Let's move into the next demo by Marcus Moeller, Teams meeting app, record and playback attendee names. Marcus, take it away.
Yes. Today, I want to talk about Microsoft Teams meeting apps. And I want to give you a sample on the pre-meeting and the in-meeting experience. And the sample is an idea given to me by Microsoft, by Bob German and by Ajit Shaikh, also today in the call. And thanks for your support, by the way, because they were not only giving the idea, but also supporting me about the background stuff, because it is relatively new. Short about me, my name is Markus Möller. For those about who don't know me, Microsoft 365 developer expert. I'm working for Avanade in Germany, and you can find me on Twitter as well as via my public blog, where I also illustrate the given sample today. Let's directly jump into the demo to first show what we have and later quickly explain how it works. Let's first start with how to install a quick meeting app into a meeting. So therefore, we first have to create a meeting. The tool we already have. And what's really important is to have this apps up and running is you always need a meeting with at least one attendee. There I can use one of my demo users and test this out. Once we have this meeting, we can open or edit it again, and then we can add a given Teams app. In my case, I already installed it, but I could also sideload it here from there, but I have already installed it and running it. So in my case, this is a tab. And as you might know how to install it regularly, this is quite the same. You install your tab with the configuration. In my case, I don't need it. And what we have here now already, and what you see here already now, is the so-called pre-meeting experience, meaning we have a tab in our meeting, which is not running yet. But this is, in my case, this is the purpose that all the attendees can record their name to help others later on in if they are in doubt about their pronunciation. And therefore, I have a record area here. And this works simply like a speech message in WhatsApp you would like. So push the button. Once you push it, you can record it. Once you lose it, the recording ends. Markus Möller demonstrating live. What happened now is the audio got recorded and will be stored in the background in a configured SharePoint library. And there we have it back. We also have some user information like a photo or so. And what I additionally did, I created a custom audio control and was not using the standard one. And I will later show you why. And once Markus Möller demonstrating live. We hear what we recorded. I hope you can also hear it. And this is what you can do in pre-meeting, what every participant can do. Now it becomes a bit tricky because I would like to show you now here directly the in-meeting experience. But therefore, I need some help because this in-meeting experience currently only works with a physical Teams desktop client. And this is what I had to prepare with another machine beside my currently actively running Teams client here from where I'm presenting. And this is another private laptop. And here I have prepared another demo already because I did already several recordings. And this meeting now we can directly join. We can have the microphone or not, doesn't really matter. We also do not really need the video. It's all disturbing. And what we see here now, if you pay attention on the icons above, here where we can also give feedback and so, here we have an additional custom icon, which is our app that we have. And this app we can now open up like you could also do for the chat or for the attendees. And here we have all the recordings of the attendees that already recorded their name. And you can now play back if you're in doubt about their pronunciation.
Hans Hansen, Klaus Klausen, Markus Möller.
So that's it. This is how it works in the in-meeting experience. And as you know from the chat, this in-meeting experience is only valid for the user who picks it. So in my case, I see it now, the others might not see it, but then the others see it when they open it themselves. So it's like one of you might have opened the chat here in the running call, the others might have not. There are other options where you can also share something, but this I will show you in the slides back. And I think that's all from the demo side. And now we can go back to our slides and explain how this works. As I already said, there are some prerequisites what you need. You need a meeting with at least one participant to install an app. For the in-meeting experience, you need a physical Teams desktop client and not a web client or also a virtual client like Windows 365 or so. This is currently not supported. What you additionally need, and this you might even need on two levels, if you do it like I did, you need some device permissions. One maybe for the browser, as I was recording the pre-meeting experience from a browser client, but also the Teams client now requests device permissions. And this will be handled via the Teams manifest first, and then via user acceptance. I can show you the Teams manifest in a minute, and the user acceptance, you can also see some screenshots in my blog. And of course, you need this Teams tab application and a specific Teams manifest, and there we will come to in the next slide. We also have some additional options. I already touched this somehow, so I called this pre or post meeting experience, which is quite the same area. This can be in parallel to the Teams chat or to the meeting chat, as well as the meeting itself. This is currently quite the same. And you also have the shown in-meeting experience as a side panel, but this can also show up as a dialog box, which is more centered, or as an in-meeting stage. And in the opposite to the side panel, the stage, if I open the stage, which can be, for instance, initiated by one participant from the side panel, then it's like when he presents for all. So if you have some content that you would like to present on demand to all users coming from an app or so, then you would use the stage panel. As already announced, let's now have a quick look at what specifics we have in the Teams manifest. Yeah. On the one hand, we have a scope, which at least needs to be group chat. And then we have the context and the meeting surface, which work somehow in parallel right now. This is where we really say, hey, this app shall be available in the meeting details tab or in the chat tab, which is the pre-meeting experience, but it should be also available in the meeting side panel, for instance. And last not least, we have the device permissions. And here we are asking for media, which is not only audio, it's also video in that case, but we only need the audio permissions. The next thing, which is quite specific in terms of in the opposite to a normal Teams tab, is we have some specific parameters for the meeting, which I also used in this sample. On the one hand, I used the meeting ID. This comes from a context. This meeting ID is a specific GUID. It's not the same like the ID when you have it in your event or an event of the participants, and also not an online meeting ID. This is a specific ID for the meeting, but you can treat it and what I do as a unique key, so I can store my recordings, for instance, in combination with the meeting ID, so that I clearly know these recordings are for that meeting and these recordings are for another meeting. The second thing, what I'm using is the so-called frame context. And this is here in the recording area. And the recording area, I'm only showing, as you might have seen, in the pre-meeting experience. Yeah, you have seen it in the browser when I recorded it, but when I was switching to the Teams client, to the in-meeting experience, I did not show it anymore. And this is what I'm here checking for. Am I in the frame context content, which is in that case the pre-meeting one, or this could be also, I don't know by heart now, it's like side panel or meeting side panel or so. Then I know, hey, now I'm in a side panel running, and then I can show up different things if I would like to do. Next, some things about the recording. What you see on the left-hand side is simply the UI stuff. So here I have a button with a microphone icon. Yeah? And once on mouse down, I record some data, and on mouse up, I stop the recording. This is what you've seen. And the recording takes place on the right side. And what I'm using here still is the Navigator SDK, so from the browser stuff. There's also a Teams SDK already available for that, but this is currently only supported for mobile devices. And there was this is why I was still keeping my fingers off here, because mobile devices, of course, much harder. When you only have mobile devices running, much harder to investigate and to debug or to test it out. So the first thing what we are doing here is we try to get the user media, so the microphone access. And once we have it here, then we instantiate a media recorder, and this media recorder gets a MIME type. We try to get the first track for it, and then on start, I shortened this up a bit that it fits on one slide, that I can make it visible here. Set recording is nothing else than something putting to the state, hey, the recording is running now, because then I need to display a different microphone, a filled out microphone instead of an empty one, and so on. It's not that important. But once we have the data, we push it to our current chunk. And once the recording stops, of course, once again, putting it to the state, and then we try to get the track, and we try to push back the audio stream to from an upper component coming to a callback method. That's it so far how this works. You might have also seen this in the browser. This is as I'm using the navigator thing, is that the browser, of course, pays attention. Hey, there's a recording running, and this will get off once the recording is stopped. And yeah, this is how it looks like in the how it looked like. Simply that we had this two microphone icons, the empty and the filled out one, so that you can see that you still push the button. And then, last but not least, what I did is what I was creating is a custom audio control. This is also quite simple. I used several icons here, and then I put some methods on it on the media stream. And what you also have is the audio component. This is the standard audio component. And if you remove here the controls tag, which you do not see here, then this audio control, this standard audio control, does not show up, but physically is still available and gives us things like this here, that we can pause it, or we can play it, or we can put the volume, increase it, or we can put it to mute also. No, here's mute, sorry there. For those of you who might not know what I'm talking about in terms of the custom audio control, the standard audio control looks a bit like this. And my custom one, you have seen, looks like this or this. And this is also the reason, because this custom control, I'm using the Fluent UI React North Star components, can easily adjust it based on the team's theme. Yeah, and this, I think, looks much better than the other one. This breaks a bit up. That's all from my side. Here are the typical resources, my blog series on that sample, but also the PnP sample itself in the repository, and the official Microsoft documentation on Teams meeting apps. That's from my side. Thank you.
Awesome stuff, Marcus. Really incredible feedback in the chat. There's some questions in there. I'll let you go address those while we move into our next demo. Excellent job. Up next is Rabia Williams on a feedback bot using the new adaptive card capabilities. Rabia, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, David. I'm not sure if I can top that demo. Great job, Marcus, and everyone else who did the demos. I'm so excited to be here because it's been a while since I've been on a PnP call. So I've got 15 minutes for this. I've got this sample that I did I think mid of this year after build. So we announced universal actions for adaptive cards, which had a lot of cool features in it. So we already have a PnP video on universal action, what the capabilities are, what we can achieve with these new features. So I'm not going to go in and open up the PowerPoint because I know you've probably, there is a video there, and I will also link that in a deck that I've shared with David. So we have like around 4 features we discussed during the time for build. For this adaptive cards, like from 1.4 upwards, you have features like contextual views. So you can have adaptive cards that would show up different views for different people. This was a game changer. When I announced it, it was one of the coolest things that I could think of, because previously adaptive cards would just show up the same view for every single person. That would be, you could change the messaging, you can update it stuff, but everything is just like in that same conversation, you would see the changes happening, all the users having the same view. So contextual view was one thing that I was excited about. And another feature was sequential workflow. And that what that means is every user would get to take part in a workflow process at their own sweet time. Like they didn't, if one person went ahead in that conversation and updated or did some action on the adaptive card, it wouldn't change it for other users who haven't started the workflow yet. And that was another big improvement in that area as well. And then the other one was introducing the refresh capability for the adaptive cards. So you could go ahead and update the card, and you could see the status updated and stuff like that. So these are the three things I'm going to be demonstrating in the sample that is currently in the PnP gallery as well for Teams. It's called a feedback bot. I'm not sure if it's actually a feedback because I created it as for a demonstration purpose, because there were some, I think right after build, we had some samples from the community as well. I remember Nandeep had a sample on incident management, and there was one from Vardhaman on another approval process, and they were in C#. So I took that opportunity to create something in the Node.js, JavaScript, TypeScript space as well for folks who are into that framework. So have this bot. So I'm just gonna share my screen and jump right into the demo. So I already have the project up and running, and I'll go to the source code once I've got this working and once I've showed you the demo. But I have like three users actually logged in and side by side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to invoke this feedback bot. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to ask some questions to my colleagues or my teammates here in a channel called PnP Demo. And then I want to see their responses. So most of the time, what happens is we ask a question. It might be something really important, like, what are you watching these days? What series are you watching and stuff like that. And then, there might be people who reply to it, but then you lose the conversation because there's something else coming in between. And then you don't know what the others said about this. It's somewhat like a conversation, just keeping everything in one place. So I'm just going to go ahead and invoke my bot. So it's called Cardbots. I'm going to ask a question. How is the new series? I'm just going to, some random questions, new series, Squid Game, because that's what I'm watching these days. What was it called? Squid Game? I think it is. Only I can spell things. Okay, so I'm going to ask this question as a person. So this is my initiator who is initiating this bot, and it will throw me a base card. So this is what's happening under the hood as well. It will throw a card to everyone. Hope it's working. Yeah, cool. So you can see for a tiny moment there, you can see that everybody in that whole team, in that whole channel can see the base card being sent out, but immediately for the initiator, it changes, it updates. This is the contextual view that I was talking to you about, like based on what your role is in that particular workflow, you will see the cards. So in my case here, admin, he or she is the initiator. So immediately the base card updated, and it showed me like a summary of, if my teammates responded or not. In the meantime, I'm logged in as Adil here, who gets a card where she could respond. So I'm just going to go ahead and respond to that. And she wasn't a big fan. She said it's overrated. Cool. So she has sent her response now on this particular question. You can see that the message updates itself. At the same time, it refreshes for every person involved here. So you can see here the information is already captured. And she got a card that says, "Thank you for your response." So you don't need to do any more response on that. And you have the admin, she or he can see that Adil responded to it with a reply. It's a super simple demo. Like I said, I wanted to demonstrate the capabilities of adaptive card, but you can think of other scenarios where this could be used as well. So we've seen now contextual views feature, and we also see the refresh capability of adaptive cards. One thing we didn't see is the sequential workflow, right? So we have normally previously what happened was when you have an adaptive card, you make some, you go ahead and approve or things like that. That card changes for everyone in that conversation. But if I'm logged in as another person who did not respond, in our case, it is now Alex. I'm logged in as Alex. Alex can see this card again because he hasn't started his process yet. So he can see the question and he can reply then and there. So this is the feature that they're talking about, the sequential workflow. So Alex can go ahead and reply saying it is great. Okay. There's someone who actually likes it and respond back. Immediately what happens is it updates the card for every single person in that channel and shows, the summary for the admin or the initiator, whoever initiated this bot. And, nothing changes for Adele because she responded, so that's fine. And for Alex, it should be, again, similar to Adele. So this is basically the demo part of it, how it all works together and how you can get all these features now with just few changes, because the game changer was that they introduced some refreshed properties and also the response, sending the adaptive card response back into the bot. So that was the game changer for all this to work together. Apart from this, they also had the feature of it, being universal. That was the whole concept, right? So you have universal actions, means it works in Teams and it works in Outlook as well, because the backend is now the same bot registered. So you just have to open up the channel to Outlook. I unfortunately cannot demonstrate that in this sample because it's the code's not there. But so I will jump into the code aspect, the sample, and open up and show you how I built this. So I'm not going to go into detail, but I'll show you what really helped me, because I have all this documented in my blog. So let's jump into the VS Code. So this is basically my project, and it is probably, I started off at a very good base project, and thanks to Bob German, who is my colleague and friend, who suggested the Yeoman generator for Bot Builder. It was a game changer for me because I was looking for something really simple to start with, and I wanted a structure or a project that does not have a lot of things going on, because obviously I wanted to learn these concepts first. So I used the generator for that, and it was perfect. I used an EcoBot template for it, and it just created this bot.ts and my entry file, and that was it. That was the only thing I need to worry about. So here are a few things that I've done extra is I have a memory. So I have some conversation data that I needed to store in order to make sure that I know who the initiator is, the user ID of that person. I wanted to know who responded so that I can show them a different view or a different card. So for that reason, I needed some sort of a memory. So I used this memory storage shares, which is what you see in this file. Other changes is basically the main changes are all happening in the bot. So I have the activity handler here, and for what it's worth, I have included comments in most of the lines because again, this is a demonstrating sample, so I find it really helpful when people would see some comments. So go ahead and check this out in our PnP gallery, and you can probably understand what I'm trying to do here. But it's just basic stuff, and like I said, getting the user information and things like that. And what I'm really interested to show you today is this invoke activity function. That is what I override, and then I put my logic in for all that refresh activity that's happening. And here what's happening is based on the action on the card. Like if I'm going ahead and submitting the card, then I'm storing this information of this user into the payload, into the memory, and then using it in the payload to refresh that card, so that first I send out the base card, and then I would check if that's an initiator. Boom, I show the initiator's card, which is like a summary card. And if someone else goes ahead and put the form information in and click the boom button, then I would go ahead. So that's a switch case here. Okay, and then I go ahead and add that person into the list of user ID. And based on who they are, they're not the initiator. Okay, show them the other card that says thank you. And this is how it works. So it's like it was pretty interesting to do this, but thanks to the refresh payload, refresh property or the object in the payload that made it possible. So this is that extra piece of stuff they added. So this user ID is where you can add these users who are active participants of this workflow. Like if in a business scenario, it would be a person who's approving, a person who created an incident form or something like that. Those user IDs can go into the payload and they could kick off a refresh of that adaptive card and show something new. So I think we have just 1 more minute for this meeting. So yeah, I really wanted to just show you that. And finally, I will share these links. Basically, I think I have shared this deck with David as well. So I've got the blog, I've got the source code in PnP Gallery. I've got, if you want to read more about universal actions, you can go to aka.ms/PnP-UM. I also linked in the generator that I used to build this one out. So yeah, that's basically the demo.
Fantastic, Rabia. This is really awesome stuff. Very exciting. Thank you for sharing it today. Links are in the chat. They will also be in the blog if you're watching the video. Let's go back to the slides to wrap up. Again, I'd like to thank all of our presenters, Bert, Paolo, Marcus, and Rabia. Awesome stuff today. This community is the best by far. Thank you all again for taking the time to share with the rest of the community. The recording will be available in 24 hours or less in the Microsoft 365 PnP YouTube channel, aka.ms/m365pnp/videos. You can follow us on Twitter at Microsoft 365 Dev or at Microsoft M365 PnP. The next general development call will be 2 weeks from today, October 28th at 7 a.m. Pacific time. SharePoint Framework call will be next Thursday, October 21st at 7 a.m. You can get the invites from all of our calls, aka.ms/M365PnP. Of course, there is the weekly platform call, as we mentioned, on Tuesdays, aka.ms/M365-dev-call. Get the invite. Do not miss that one. It is awesome. We have a number of other developer community calls, adaptive cards, identity platform, Office Admins, Power Apps, Microsoft 365 Community, and SharePoint Framework. You can get them all at aka.ms/M365PnP. Thank you again, everyone. Enjoy the weekend.